Right, we've just had the phone call that we've been waiting a very, very long time for. For you guys, it's just a few moments ago that we loaded the engine in the back of the truck and took it down to Coltech for them to open it up. Well, that was in fact nearly a year ago now. When they did open it up, they saw the head was in incredibly bad condition. From years of the wrong antifreeze mixture in the coolant, it's just eaten away at the cylinder head. Everything aluminium had just been rotted away. They had to rebuild all that up, machine everything flat. And then we saw that the bores were in really bad condition. They actually had to oversize the bores, and the only place we could find oversized pistons was imported from America. So it's just been a huge job of getting all the upgraded parts. But we've just got a call to say that it's all ready. So I'm now going to go and pick it up. Right, we've got the precious cargo loaded. Let's get it back to the workshop. And here it is back, looking much happier. The whole engine's been gone through top to bottom. Every bit of corrosion had to be welded up. So all these waterways had to be re-welded, then have the groove machined in for the O-rings, so they're all sealed. Everything in here has been blasted and smoothed out. All the thread on the tensioner was all messed up, so that's been done. The crank had to be re-welded because the wood draft key was all rounded off, so that's all been done as well. Lots of the bolts had lost their thread on the top where the two halves go together, so that's all been redone. New threads, all the faces have been machined, so it is all ready to go back together. And down there we've got all new pistons inside, and inside we've got all new valve guides, valve seats, and of course all the faces were rebuilt and then machined back ready for the head gasket. The block was decked, so it is all fresh. The car has been sitting safely in our shed for the last year as well, but it's got a little bit filthy. And the engine bay is very grotty with oil leaks from the previous engine, so as it's all empty, I think I'll give that a good clean up before we get it in and then assess all our bits. So we are back in the workshop, and you might recognise this from a previous episode where we took the engine out, we sent it away to the machine shop. All the waterways were so corroded, the cylinder head had to be welded up all the way through where it goes past the head gasket, where the waterways come out the side. It was just in a real bad state. They had to oversize the bore so much they had to go up a piston size, which had to be imported from America, from JE Pistons. And collecting up all the parts and getting all the bits done has just been a long, long process. So we're about 9 months later now. I've just unloaded the engine, so it's time to get all my bags and bits and notes out and try and remember how this goes back together. Here are all the ancillaries, the sump, the front cover, water pump, all the aluminium mounts. It'd be a shame to put all these grotty bits on a brand spanking new engine, so we're going to clean all them up. And then up over here, we've got all the covers as well, also looking very tired, so we're going to give all these a good paint up, a polish up, get all the letters shining to go on this brand new engine. Alright, it's just finished in the ultrasonic cleaner. Let's check them out. Now that is much better and nice and warm. So you just need to give these a rinse off and they'll be good to go. Right, on to the next batch. Next batch going in. Off it goes. Another batch done. Ooh, what a mess. A little rinse off, they're going to come out lovely. And the timing cover. Might have to do this one in 2 halves. Or even 3. Give that a go. flip it around to the other half. And that is all the aluminium parts done, and they look spanking. All the aluminium reacts really well to ultrasonic cleaning. They've come out looking like brand new. All the mounts, all the covers, the oil filter housing looks fantastic. All in the sump as well. You'd never clean out all the gunk under there, and that's all come out. So now these are ready to go back together. We just had a huge parts delivery from BMW. Like I've said before, we can still get absolutely everything for these old classic BMWs. Every gasket, every seal we want, every paper seal, every rubber gasket, cork gaskets, crank seals, cam seals, rubber hoses, all new genuine fluids, new genuine filters, spark plugs. Managed to get all the internal parts for the oil pump as well. All the bits that were broken off. It's a new cog, even the nut for the end. Even managed to get the new bellows for the throttle bodies direct from BMW, because on the throttle bodies on his, they've all split, so that's got a load of air leaks. So we've got all brand new ones of them. We should have everything that we need. And this is why I always get so prepared and so organised, because you never know whether it's going to be a month off the road, a week off the road, 6 months off the road or more. So that's why I always label everything. Every bag's got details of what's in it. Little notes to remind me. And in my book, if there's different ways things can go. Always have little diagrams of where the long bolts go, where the short bolts go, how the tensioners go together, where all the long bolts are. So organisation is definitely key. So I'll get all these bits out and start assembling. Organisation makes my life a lot easier. And onto the oil pump. Remember we saw this was wobbling around. Well, it had fatigued it so badly, it actually snapped the nut off. So this shaft coming out is broken. So we couldn't buy an oil pump complete, but you can still get all the internal components. So here's our bit that has snapped off. And when we took this apart, the bits did not look good inside either. And here they are side by side, and you can see all the gouges and all the chips out of the pump and the state of it in there compared to what it should look like. So I think it's had a very hard life. It's had lots of bits whizzing around in it. So this one, see all the gouges out of the corners. This one will be pumping much better. So we'll get that back in the housing. That just sits in there like that. And its pump. And there was only 5 bolts in it, but there should be 6. So they're all still available from BMW. So we've got new bolts, a new nut for the end, because this one is stuck on the shaft. So we've got everything we need to put it back together. And that's how it pumps. And these are the new guides and tensioners for the cam chain. So you can see how worn the old one was compared to the new smooth one. All from BMW, all the same part numbers, and you can see the colour difference between the new and the old. This brown one used to be white, but the third one, also from BMW, the original was just a normal cast one, but the one that's come through, actually a billet aluminium one. So whether they don't produce them anymore and this is their replacement, that's a smart little upgrade. And with the engine flipped over, that's the oil pump on, all bolted on and torqued down. Sneaky little super rod signed on there. Got the chain on, and before I put the chain on, I just put some oil down and started pumping it down. And that came out into the filter housing nicely. So we're all good to go here. Next we can carry on with the timing chains. First off was that posh new billet one at the bottom, got that on, then compared my bits together, made sure we have everything. And then we put this idler in. It's a big pin that goes through into the block, You have to make sure that the pin has the cutout, the semicircle facing at the top. So that's tapped in. Then we can put the chains on, one sprocket on, done up, another sprocket on, done up, and then check the timing with a few rotations. We are spot on, so then I can put the covers back on, get the tensioner in and torqued up. Then once the cam sprockets were happy, there's a little locking tab, so just tap over and we are all done. The chains all on. We're all timed up. Got all the new guides on, just put the new covers on. Got the cams all bolted on and torqued up. Got the dizzy drive on, got the new tensioner on. We're all good. I've just done a couple of rotations and that all times up nicely. All the marks line up. So we can start putting the rest of the covers on. Get that cover on, get the rear main oil seal on, get the sump on and carry on building it up from there. This is of course a massive hurdle stone conquered. Having it all timed up now is very important. Part of the engine done. The rest of it is just bolt on covers. It's getting heavier. Had a good rummage around our BMW box and found all the new gaskets, all the new seals. So I'll tap them in, then we can get these fitted back onto the engine. New crank seals all in, looking good. So we'll get our bolts together. So we've got chain lower cover, C book for diagrams, put water pump on first, and C clips for chain guard. It's in there, C book for diagram. So I wrote down where the longest bolts go, second longest, medium, the 13mm bolt, the length of bolts for the alternator. Organisation is key, and however clever you think you are, you won't remember where all these different lengths of bolts go. Castings of these flanges aren't the best, they're quite pitted and they only have the paper gasket that goes around there. So I think I'm just going to put a little bit of sealer on there as well, because the rear main oil seal is not one that I want to leak. It also comes with this handy little plastic bit that's tapered, so that lets you put the seal on and then that slides straight on the crank. So that's a handy little tool that it came with. Hopefully we'll squeeze this in here. Oh, perfect. And then this, now that is a good idea. Big ones at the top, well, the bottom, and the little ones everywhere else. 22 Newton meters for the M8s, and 9 for the M6s. Onto the front. This one's a bit trickier because you've got the head gasket sitting there and that tends to push it up a bit, and we need to get centered for our seal there. We'll get this cleaned up and get the cover on. And making sure everything is spotlessly clean, trying on the cover, all looks good. So we put a bit of sealer around the bottom of the head gasket to make sure that seal's on there. All bolts together, looking good. Just check my diagram to check where all the bolts go. And notice the lifting eye also bolts on here. So we'll put that on before we torque them down and then get the torque settings. Same as the other side, 22 for the big ones and 9 for the small ones. Check. Should have followed my instructions. Put water pump on first. Because you can't get to the bolts. So I've got to take that bracket back off, water pump on, and back on. Over again. So on the bottom, where the gasket just overhangs a bit, just got to snip them off smooth, and then we can put the sump on. It's better. So it's time to say goodbye to this lovely crankshaft one last time, because it's now going to be covered up for good. Got the sump there ready. Say goodbye to our Super Ron and get this sump on. And remember in the last episode when I cleaned up all the sump bolts, where they're all ready to go here, all torqued up and on. Next up, I'll get the oil filter on. It's got a new cartridge. And they also come with all the copper washers, the drain and the bolt. New filter in, new O-ring on. Pop this in. On. And it has got a little arrow on the casing that points to the front. Got a new sump washer on, so we can do that up. Done. So the last bit under here to do up is this crank pulley, which has got a massive torque on it. It's 380 foot-pounds, which is 516 Newton meters. And you need like a little holder that goes on there with a big arm on it, but we don't have that. So with a bit of creativity, it's got this old toe and eye. Drilled that out, so I'll bolt that on, put an arm on here, and then hopefully I can get the torque wrench on and we can do this up. If not, we might have to wait until it's in the car for that one, but we'll give it a go because then I can get all the pulleys on and everything else. And that's on. I had to put some washers on so the bolts don't bottom out on the casing at the back, but we've got all these ones in. It's on there solid, so we'll get a bar on and try and do this up. Here goes. Only halfway. Oh, got it. Whew. Give me a long enough lever and I can move the world. So before the pulleys go on, this big bracket's got to go back on because that bolts through there as well. So we'll get all that on and then get the pulleys on. And now we can put the pulleys on, so it would have covered those bolts up. Given them a quick satin black to smarten them up. And painted the water pump up as well, so it looks nice and smart. So we'll get all them bolted on. Right, let's get it upright again, probably for the last time. Getting heavier. And now we've got our pulleys on. Just going to rotate it just for peace of mind, get it all up to top dead center, check all our lines match up, and it's the final few covers. Here it comes. Spot on. There's our line, lined up with a peg, and the cam notches are lined up with their cutouts. So we are all good. I think we'll get these front covers on, get that covered up now. Our pile of bits is getting smaller. So this is one cam cover, that's the other one. So we should have a new seal for the end of that. So we'll get that in. New seal in. Bolts already in their bag. Get the dizzy drive on. And the rotor arm. This surface is a bit pitted as well, so I've just put a really thin seamer sealer on there. And that locates on some little dowels. And on. Here's the bolts. Rear top cover and rear water elbow. Long bolts on elbow. Okay. And said elbow goes on the back as well. So I think next up, we're going to put this big water bar on, and that goes in here. And this is where it's all had to be repaired. And these O-rings have had to be machined back in because I had to weld all these up because it has rotted out right past here. So the O-rings didn't even have anything to hold on to. So all that has been welded up, and we've got new O-rings in, but they had to actually machine new O-ring circles in the weld, and then machine all this off, So there was a lot of work that went into that to get them all done. Now the O-ring should sit in there nicely, and then I think we'll get the exhaust on as well. So that's all 48 exhaust studs back in, new gaskets are on, manifolds are ready, just giving them a clean up. Get them on next. That's the manifolds all on and torqued up, and I'll put the engine mount and the aircon bracket on as well, so this side is all tidied up. I did have to take this pulley off again because I didn't know there's some bolts just in there for this mount, just like there was on this side. So just got that back on as well. So this side is all finished. And this is a side where it lays down right over that you're never going to be able to get to. So I definitely wanted this side finished. But all my bags are getting pretty empty now. So we might be soon ready to put it back in. And I've just given the independent throttle bodies a good clean up. We're not going to strip these down because they were all working fine, and we can't really put them in the ultrasonic cleaner because you've got all the linkages and everything, so all the little needle roller bearings in there all mess up. But they're all cleaned up nicely, cleaned up all inside, got all the old bellows off that normally go on there. These were rock solid, they're all cracking, split around the edges. So these are like hard plastic, whereas the new ones are soft rubber, so they go on there. But we've got all new ones of them, so that's all cleaned up nicely. Got our new gaskets on, so I think we can put these on and get everything else on. It's starting to look a little bit special. So I think next I'll try and get all the water pipes on. There's quite a few that go under here, so it's going to be a lot easier doing it out here than doing it when it's in. And probably get the loom in as well, I think, because the loom was all on it when it came out, so I'll get that back on and continue. When we pushed in those pins for the idlers for the cam chain, you had to make sure that the semicircle was at the top. That's because this water pipe then goes on there and locks that in. So we've got a new pipe for this one because that was all perished. Carry on round. And the rest of the octopus on, go wiring loom. And that's the loom all back in. Alternators all wired up. These are here ready for the starter. Idle control. There's the loom that goes into the car. Injectors are all in. Fifth injector, around to all the coolant sensors. Everything's back on its old marks, on its clips. Well, I think I am out of parts. It's just about time to get it back in the bay, finally. It's been a long time coming. Something I have just noticed that I'm going to do before it goes in is I was having a look at the fuel lines. And as you can see, they're not in the best of conditions. I'm just going to do them before they only join just there, so it just needs a new length. That'll be a lot easier than when it gets in the car. Yeah, that was not ideal. But all replaced now, done both pipes, so the new one comes out, ready for the feed, and the return at the front. So I think we're set to get this in. So let's get the crane off this BMW engine. Still think that would have been a pretty cool transplant on the E28, but that's due to go back in the E92 M3. We just need the crane. We are nearly down, managed to get it slotted in the hole now. Go back a bit, but this mount is almost in. But I was struggling a bit with this mount, and something E28 owners may have already been telling the screen. That mount down there, you can see where the pin is and the hole is. I've actually put it on upside down. So we'll whip that back off. Lucky I can get to it from underneath. But as you can see here, that's that way, and that should be facing downwards. So luckily we can get to all the bolts there, flip it over, and that'll go back where it's supposed to be. I'll get that back in there. And finally we are in. That was an absolute nightmare. It wouldn't sit at the right angle on the crane. So I had to put a strap up from the exhaust manifold up to the crane just to try and rotate it around. And because the mounts, one is going in that way and one is going in that way, obviously it wouldn't just drop down because both were at a different angle. So I ended up having to take this side off, get this one in, and then put this one back on, but we are in. So it hasn't got a rear one, so it's just resting, balancing at the minute. But that is a big milestone. The engine's back in the hole. So next up, clutch and flywheel. I've just given the flywheel clean off, that's all right. The clutch was looking pretty well worn. So we've got a new clutch kit. You can see how worn it is. This one's got all the grooves in. This one is nearly down to the rivets, so it's certainly seen some action. So we'll get the flywheel on. We've got some new bolts from BMW, new clutch on, new release bearing. Then we can get the gearbox in. And do these up, 104 Newton meters. That's the flywheel all on. We've got this handy little universal tool that just locks into the tooth and then bolts onto a bell housing, and that stops it rotating when you're trying to do up the bolts. So that's all on, they're torqued up. You can see here as well the little notch that the crank sensor picks up on. So as it goes round, it knows where top dead center is. So now we'll get the bearing back in the middle and get the clutch on. And the pilot bearing. And we have got some new clutch bolts, because there's a bit of a variety that was in there before. One's with washers, one's with different heads. So we'll get a matching new set on there and get this new clutch in. And signed. We are getting down to our last few bags. Bell housing we'll need next, and then prop shaft, heat shields, and we'll be done. And we are on. That all slotted onto the new clutch nicely, all up on its mounts. All fits in there perfectly. Got the clutch back on. Don't need to bleed that because we never disconnected it. Got that on. Now it's just time to fill it full of oil. Got the genuine BMW stuff. Pump a few litres of that in. We can start testing some things. And that's the exhaust system all on. Heat shields back on. Gear linkage all in. Gearbox full of fluid, and then I've got the strut brace and the anti-roll bar back on, and we've fitted some new arms at the front because the bushes were gone. So I've got new arms there, another one on there. So I think underneath here now we are completely back together. All the looms on, power steering, belts are all on, radiators in. Mounts are all on nice. So I think it's time to bring it down and finish up on the top. And got a few more bits up the top. So the radiator's in, fans in, all the water lines are now connected up. Got the new soft boots on for the plenum, so they're all on. Rocker covers off because, before we put that on, we just want to paint that, and we're also going to paint the big plenum and the airbox as well, because that kind of lets the bay down. So we'll get all them painted. And whoosh, Lee has just finished painting and they have come out amazing. He painted it all black and then scraped off the aluminium and then satin lacquered the whole thing so it won't corrode up again. But that looks awesome. And also got the airbox to go back together. So that's going to set this bay off perfectly. So we're all out the way. I think what I'm going to do is fill it up with oil from the top so I can dose all the cams, all the chains, make sure I can cover that all in oil as we're filling. And then get these covers on. So all the buckets are nice and full, cams are nicely lubed, dripping wet on the chains. So it's time to cover this up for one last time. And all fitted. That's just finished off this bay nicely. It was a real struggle to get that end plenum on, getting all those individual bellows on. We've got that on, airbox is in, got a lick of paint as well. And the snazzy rocker cover. Got a brand new top pipe as well, because that was all cracked. So I haven't put the spark plugs in at the minute, because I want to turn it over and over, build up some oil pressure and get it pumping around the whole engine before we go for a fire up. So that's what I'm going to do now. Let's connect up a battery and see what happens. So I'll disconnect the crank sensors so it won't try and fire. See if we've got any life. It doesn't matter how many engines you do, that first turn of the key is always a nervous one. So let's go. Oil pressure light's gone out, no oil on the floor. I think we can put the spark plugs in and try for a proper start. Genuine BMW spark plugs, and we've got our specialist spark plug tool. Get all these in. Plugs are in, all torqued up, ECU and everything is plugged in. I've now officially run out of parts to fit, so I can't postpone it anymore. We're going to go for a full fire up. I'll give it one last crank without the crank sensors in. See what it's like under compression. Oil pressure light went out, crank sensors on. Official first start. Must be missing something. Giving the fuse box a wiggle. See if that helps. So let's give it another go. I can hear the fuel pump now. Got a fuel pump. Go for it. It's alive! It's alive! Everything's good on the dash. Sounding good. Right, let's turn this off and put some water in it. Right, that's all filled up. Let's go for a proper run up. I think we're all ready. Well, it's all been worth it. No problems, running absolutely sweet. Coolant's all bled up. Let this run up, let the fans kick in. And then we can put the last few bits on and get this back out on the road. Bonnet is on, we're all back on the floor. Let's see if it will move under its own steam. Right, we're all on. Windows work. Let's give it a test drive. It moves! Right, we're going to make our way to the MOT station now, because obviously that's run out. Hopefully we can report back with good news. Everything feels nice. Right, let's see what the MOT says. And we are back from an MOT and we have got a pass. There's just a few little things we had to do and now it's officially back on the road. I've just had it up on the ramp, checked over for any leaks and it all seems brand new. So I'm really pleased finally this has come together. It's sourcing parts from all over the world and now finally it's back together and back on the road. So the owner is going to be massively happy now. He's been waiting a long time for this. There's been a lot of money invested in it now, but the value of these are going through the roof at the moment. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Of taking the engine out and putting the engine in has probably been a short time in YouTube world, but it has been almost a year now. This poor thing has been off the road. So make sure you give this video a like, make sure you tune in next time, because as you can see, there's no telling what we have in next. This is the place for variety. But until next time, make sure you have fun.